you are going back to boot camp. Expect to be a recruit once again. So my name is Robert Porter. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1986 to 2007. I was a military policeman, criminal investigator, and a drill instructor. I retired as a gunnery sergeant. So I grew up in Albany, New York. Well, I was adopted by a family because I'd been orphaned, and so I was a little bit different than the rest of the family. They had their own son, and my whole life I was always reading comic books, military stuff really interested me. Sergeant Rock comics, Strange War, you know. At one point I actually went to a military school, but I didn't do too well. I wasn't politically correct. I got in a lot of trouble, and they asked that I not return. And then I went back to public school. I sat through 12 years. I didn't graduate. So my sophomore year, I'd actually met this kid in middle school, and we both had the same name. His name was Kevin Barr, and everybody called me Barr as a first name. And so I'd known this kid several years. In our sophomore year, I was riding the bus home after school, after playing soccer, and he was riding the bus home and sitting right behind me, talking to his friend Kevin, and they had both been there for detention, and they were talking about how they're going to go out and they're going to have a good time. Kevin was going to bring a bottle of Jack Daniels, and my buddy Barr was going to bring something else that was illegal at the time, and they were going to meet at this one location. And knowing him, it wasn't unusual to hear that. It sounded like just a typical day for this kid. And I get home, make something to eat, watching TV, doing homework, whatever, and the phone rang, and somebody called, and they said they were sorry my brother was dead. And my older brother had almost died in a car accident when he was a sophomore. And so it wasn't a real shock, but it was a shock. And so, you know, I was like, okay, thanks, whatever, hang up. Another call. And an hour or two had gone by, and I'm on the phone, and my older brother walks in. And I'm like, this is a sick joke, man. My brother walks in. And you're like, no, Barr walked in? I'm like, you mean this Barr? I'm Barr. And you're like, Barr's dead. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I hung up again. And for the rest of the evening, I sat by the phone and answered it, and, you know, told people to basically pound sand so that my mother and my brother wouldn't be worried about what's going on. Going to school the next day, a lot of people are looking at me like I'm a ghost.
Oh, shit.
Because, you know, they just know the name. And so, you know, this is one of the stories where I know I was meant to be a Marine, because I was like, all right, I'm dead. I don't go to school anymore.
Wow.
I can do whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
And so the hard part was seeing people that had belittled him and put him down, saying that they wish they had known they would have helped. And, you know, I told one of them, I was like, you're the reason. You hated him. You're a preppy. You know, he was a stoner. You didn't associate with him, and if you did, you said, you know, nasty stuff. You're the reason, you know, and that didn't go over too well.
Wow.
Yep.
What inspired you to join the Marines?
So like I said, my whole life I'd been interested in the military. I liked the military movies. I joke that if I'd seen two movies in an opposite order, I would have been a Navy Seabee, because John Wayne starred in them both. One was Sands of Iwo Jima, and the other is the Fighting Seabees. And so, you know, I did talk to the Navy recruiters. They wanted me to be a nuke operator. I'm 6 foot. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be in a submarine. And the recruiter's like, oh, but we got, you know, surface ships. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not graduated first, second, or third in my class. I'm not picking what ship I want to go to. I'm going to be stuck in the subs. And so you didn't like that answer. And then Army wanted me a warrant officer helicopter pilot. And back in the day, you had to be right eye dominant, and I was left eye dominant, so I can't fly back then. And so didn't get that job. Can't remember what the Air Force said. There was no Space Force, and the Coast Guard was under the Department of Transportation back then. And so I went to the Marine recruiter, talked to Staff Sergeant Steve Martin, and he said, with these scores, you can be whatever you want to be. So I picked military police.
What made you pick that job?
I thought it would be a good way to get into law enforcement back in New York. I could become a state trooper, sheriff, city cop, and it's what I thought I wanted to do. And so, actually, I never did it because I did 21 years. So boot camp was great. I scared my recruiter a little bit because before boot camp, I got a mohawk. You know, like I said, I was a little bit different. And that didn't go over too well when you get to Parris Island.
You went to boot camp with the mohawk?
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Yep. That wasn't too fun. The receiving drill instructor, went heavy on me. Even the Marines that are, doing all the paperwork went heavy on me at first. And the hilarious thing was, what saved me was the receiving drill instructor, his wife had a child the day of pickup. So he wasn't able to pass on to my permanent drill instructors what I had been like. So it was a clean slate.
Wow.
Everybody's got, no hair, so it doesn't matter. And it wasn't until the rifle range that my mother sent pictures of me at the airport leaving. And there's my mohawk. And my senior drill instructor is just freaking out. He was having a great time. But by then, I pretty much proved myself as being pretty good. So I didn't get killed too bad.
Wow. You have any stories from boot camp?
Yeah, I mean, everybody does. The crazy, we had some crazy ones. We had a guy, he joined for the band, and I had never heard of the band. And so it was like, you're going to play the trumpet? What? And then we had this other kid. He was from American Virgin Islands, and his last name was The Corps, as in L-E Corps, his French name. And he could not do anything right. I mean, he was always on the quarterdeck. He was always messing up, always going to medical for, crazy stuff. And we get to the swim tank, and we're like, the kid's from the islands. He's going to be able to do something. He's going to be able to swim. And so we're like, hey, can you swim? He's like, oh, yeah, man, I can swim. I'm great. And we're just like, all right. And the first thing they do is they have you go off that 10-foot tower. And he walks up there confident as can be, steps off and turned into a human helicopter. Sank right down to the bottom. And the drill instructors there, the swim instructors, were like, we're going to put the shepherd's crook in the water if you're at the bottom, and we're going to pull you up. Do not grab it, because if you grab it, we're not going to pull you up. And they went down to put it down to him, and you could see him. He grabbed that, and he just tried to pull it. And the instructor gave him a little tap, said, let go. They tried again. He tried to climb up it again. They gave another little tap, and they pulled it out of the water and left him there.
Wow.
And he was down there for, now it seems like forever, but it was probably like seconds. Mm-hmm. And then one of the instructors went down and rescued him. And I think that's when we dropped him, from our training company.
Oh, really? He didn't make it?
I don't know, because on our graduation, when we were graduating, he was on our gear detail. He was guarding our squad bay. Mm-hmm. And so we're graduating, and he's still there. And he was still upbeat. He was still trying. He hadn't turned into a shipbird or anything. And so it was. I hope he made it.
Wow. Where'd you go to MP school?
So the crazy thing is, back in '86, the Marine Corps was doing some stuff. Some of it sounds great, some of it doesn't. One, to save money, non-infantry didn't go to infantry training. There was no follow-on from boot camp. So my enlistment, I actually, even though I didn't graduate high school, I signed under the quality enlistment program, which instead of 4 years active, I did 6 years active and 2 years in active reserve, because it's all an eight-year contract. I got $4,500. I got guaranteed corporal in 18 months, and I got guaranteed 4-digit MOS instead of just the first 2 designators. Like, you're an 03, you could have been in infantry, or you could have been in LAR or some, mortars or whatever. You get that at MOS school. I was guaranteed 5811 before going to MOS school because I didn't want to work in a brig. And then I got to pick either East Coast, West Coast, or overseas for duty station. So I picked overseas. So I got sent to Okinawa, 3rd SSG, which is now 3rd MLG. And while I was there, it was a year tour. I got to go to Korea, and I got to go to the Philippines. And so I was having a great time doing exactly what I wanted to do as a Marine, go out in the field, shoot guns, have fun. And so I extended for a year and went to Thailand and Korea again. So I spent 2 years there.
Do you have any stories from Thailand?
I actually got to go on leave up to Bangkok. And in the Far East, cars are very expensive. Usually only the rich have them. They'll be, and their commercial vehicles all a lot smaller because the roads are smaller. So in Thailand, they have what's called a tuk-tuk. And it's a 3-wheel vehicle, motorcycle, taxi, all in one. So there's a bench seat that can hold 2-3 people behind the driver. And they really don't follow the rules of the road, the way we do. So I think the road we were on was like a main thoroughfare, and so it was like supposed to be like 4 lanes of traffic. That was more like 6 or 7, and motorcycles and bicycles are cutting through, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so I saw what looked like a full-size car, but it was a Honda Accord 4-door. But it's a big car.
Right.
And there's 3 Caucasian women in it. And one's a blonde, and she's sitting in the back seat. So I'm like, hey, wow, pretty cool. And she sees me, and we have this magical moment, through the space. And the light turns green and lose them in traffic. Well, this time I can see her actually looking for me in the traffic. So I'm like, that's a good sign. So I give the driver the cash, and I walk over and I knock on the window. And they're a little bit surprised, of course. And she's like, let him in. The driver's like, no, we don't know who this guy is. She's like, well, he's obviously an American. Let him in. If we don't, he's going to get killed as soon as the light turns green. He's a pedestrian in the middle of traffic. And so they scream back and forth a little bit. They let me in. And it turned out that they were daughters of people working at our U.S. Embassy. And they were on their way to pick up 3 other Marines from their hotel who happened to be 2nd and 1st lieutenants in the Marine Corps.
Oh, shit.
So I'm sitting there as a corporal, as the 5th wheel in this group. And, but the one girl's, she's still a little bit sweet on me. And we go to a bar, and in the Far East, tuberculosis is not eradicated like it has been in the United States. So I had been exposed to tuberculosis in one of my deployments. So I was taking medication, and the doctor said, drink in moderation. I'm like, you're telling a Marine to drink in moderation in Okinawa. Okay, that's not a good option. And so we go to this one bar, and it's owned by an Australian and an American, and he had been in the Marines. And he brought over a tray of shots. And my eyes started watering, my nose started burning, the ceiling paint above us started peeling, and he had one for each of us. And I had decided the easiest way to drink in moderation was not to drink. And so at the other bars, I hadn't had any alcohol. And I'm like, okay, I can avoid this. And he picked up the shot glass and said, Semper Fi. And I'm like, you could have said anything else, brother. Anything else, and I would have been good. But you had to say that. And so I reached down and I grabbed the glass. 2 of the lieutenants grabbed the glass, and the 3rd one didn't. No, 2 of them didn't, because there was 2 glasses left over. And so I looked at the Marine that owned the bar, and I grabbed the 2nd one, and he grabbed the 2nd one, and we both did 2 shots. And we winked at each other, like, yeah, okay, Lieutenant. And the girl came over to me and she said, you're not supposed to drink, you're on medication. I said, yeah. She goes, why'd you do it? I go, he's a Marine and he just said Semper Fi to me. What else am I supposed to do? I can't, discredit myself and my corps. And so needless to say, that lieutenant was home alone that night. So from overseas, I went to be an MP at the recruit depot in San Diego. While I was there, I exemplified myself and I got selected to be a criminal investigator. And so I did some time as a OJIT there, on the job training, learning how to be a criminal investigator. I had to extend my contract because I was at the end of my first enlistment, so I could go to CID school at the Army at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And that's where all the criminal investigators go. That's where all the Army investigators go. And so I went there. The Marine Corps criminal investigator does more of the minor crimes. More serious crimes will be kicked up to NCIS. There are Marines that are selected to go to NCIS. Like I said, NCIS, the TV show, is actually a biography of a real Marine that was in NCIS. So Gibbs is a person. I never was selected for that, so I did the CID side. And I was working out in Del Mar with my partner. It was a Friday afternoon. He had his suspect in the interrogation room, and he's talking to this guy, and he had everything that he needed. He had witness statements, he had photographs, he had fingerprints, he recovered stolen property. I mean, he had everything. But it's always better when the person confesses to their crime and, it never goes to court after that. Once he's confessed, the judge gets it, his lawyer makes a deal, and whatever happens. But he couldn't get this confession. And so he comes out and he's like, look, dude, you got to help me out. And I'm like, it's 16:30, let's go home, call it a day. He's like, come on. I'm like, okay. Did you try this? Yeah. Did you try that? Yeah. What am I going to do? He's like, well, just try. So I go in there. And like I said, I got no expectations of doing anything. So I just laid it out flat. I'm like, look, dude, let's get out of here. It's 16:30. Where do you want to go? He's like, well, I want to go to the Elephant Bar down in La Jolla. And I'm like, wow, I like the Elephant Bar. I've been there. In fact, when I was there last time, I won this free CD, this band, Funka Psychopus. And he lights up. He's like, I love that band. And I'm like, great, let's get out of here, let's go. And he's like, yeah, but you want, my statement. I'm like, well, yeah. And he lays it all out. Everything. And he tells us about stuff that we didn't know about. He had other property that he'd stolen, that he'd secreted away. So we go over to the barracks, we collect that stolen property. He's telling us about all the other crimes that are occurring in Camp Del Mar. He's talking about people doing drugs, smuggling illegals. I mean, you name it. He was involved in everything. He knew everybody. So we call NCIS. And like I said, it's now like 8 or 9 Friday evening. And we get one of the civilians, not one of the Marines, one of the civilians. And we tell him what we've got. Because this is now above us. We recovered our stolen property, but he's talking, major felonies. And the guy goes, give him my number, have him call me Monday morning, 9 o'clock.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, as soon as he walks out of our door, he's going to get to the barracks and realize what he just said, and we're never going to find him again. He's going to go UA. He's going to desert. He's like, no. He sounds like he's a really cool guy. He's been helping you out. He'll stick around. 10 o'clock Monday morning, they're calling us. Hey, where's such and such? We don't know. Call the command. Hey, did such and such show up for work today? Nope. Have you seen him? Nope. I had a little of a difference of opinion with the warrant officer who was in charge of criminal investigation at Camp Pendleton. And so he revoked my credentials and I reverted back to being a military policeman. And since I wasn't a criminal investigator, I was sent back to my parent command, 1st Marine Division. At 1st Marine Division, on paper, we're supposed to have we have a company of 3 platoons. In reality, we know how the Marine Corps is. You're never at TO. So our company was only 1 platoon. West Coast, you have 1st, 5th, and 7th Marines. And each regiment rates 1 platoon of MPs whenever they deploy. And so we'd go out to CAX to 29 Palms and train with 1st Marines. We'd go up to Bridgeport and train with 5th Marines. We'd go out to CAX and at Desert Steel, Desert Fire X, and we'd train with 7th Marines. And it seemed like every other week, one of them was getting ready to go somewhere. And so we'd get called up to get ready to go. So, we'd get our tricolor desert camouflage. We'd get all our desert gear, or we'd get cold weather gear for Korea. And, you're always missing gear. You always need something. So 4 Marines got a little laundry list together of what everybody needed from the Army-Navy store out there in Oceanside. And they're driving out there, and just like today here in sunny Southern California, it was raining. And they got into a car accident, and the passenger died on the scene from the impact, and the driver was life-flighted to the trauma unit at Scripps. And so my CO told me to go down and assess the situation and report back to him. So I had to drive down to San Diego. I got into the trauma unit, the ER unit, just as the head doctor was attempting to pull the plug on my Marine. And so I stepped in between him and my Marine and told him he couldn't touch him. And doctors don't like being told no, especially ones that are in charge of a department at a big hospital. And so he, rightfully so for him, he's like, question who I am. And he didn't realize what I was willing to do to stop him. And fortunately for me, my roommate at the time was a reservist with SEAL Team 1. He was a corpsman for them during the Gulf War. And he was there. And so he was able to step between me and the doctor and make sure the doctor got out of there safely. I was given some time, about 2 hours, to do what I needed to do, what I could do for him. And got the paperwork, faxed it back to my command. It seems everything happens on Fridays. It was a late Friday afternoon. And faxed it back to Headquarters Marine Corps. Got his wife there, some other fellow Marines there to say goodbye. And we got him medically retired. So she not only got his life insurance policy, but she got taken care of. And their brand new 6-month-old baby got taken care of. And an hour later, I gave the okay.
Wow. So if you didn't do that paperwork for the medical retirement,
all she would have gotten was the life insurance policy. And back then it was, I think, about 100 or 150,000.
What's next up? Because I know you were a DI.
DI school is no joke. All right. You may know some of the secrets. You may know, you may get some word from somebody else that's been there. But you are going back to boot camp. Expect to be a recruit once again. Expect to be told how to do everything. It doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter who you think you are. You're going to get humbled. You're going to get told what to do. We had one guy who's having problems with close order drill. And he got told to go somewhere, and it's speed and intensity. You're back in boot camp. So he goes to run and forgets that he has his sword on. And so he runs and he takes maybe 2-3 steps, and that sword swings out and swings in between his legs, and he goes flying right on the parade deck. Tears up his trousers, tears up his arms, bent the sword, So, in fact, I was just there because I'm out here in San Diego, and I was able to see my picture on the bulkhead. Class 4-98, saw my instructors. I'm kind of tall, so I'm always in the back.
Yeah. Now, as a DI, you went to McQuist School.
Right.
Explain what McQuist School is and talk to me about that experience.
So I go through DI school, and they're picking people to come back and be McQuist. Marine Combat Instructor of Water Survival. It is the hardest training around. So I left MCRD, I went down to Coronado for my school date for the training down there. And there may have been, on the first day, 50, 75 people. And the first thing is a 500-meter swim. And about half the class dropped at that first day because they couldn't do 500 meters in the time frame that they said that you had to do it. And this is written in the order that when you go there, you're supposed to be able to do that. And, couldn't do it. I remember one guy, he was swimming with his head out of the water, trying to look at where he's going. Oof. And if you know anything about your body and anatomy, your head is about 7 to 10 pounds. And so he's trying to swim 500 meters, holding 10 pounds roughly out of the water that whole time. He didn't make it 100 meters or so, because he was just exhausted. And so you do that. The pool, the training where we were, it was at Coronado, and on the other side of the street was the Navy SEALs BUDS training. So you could hear them every day getting killed by the SEALs. And I remember one day I was in the water, and we had all our gear on, and I had my rifle above my head, and I'm trying to stay above water, and I'm not doing too good, and somebody does something, water got in my nose. I'm trying to clear my nose out. Somebody over here hits something, and I now got water in my mouth. So I've got water in my lungs, I've got water everywhere, and I'm just like, this is, what am I doing? This is crazy. I don't need this. And I almost said I was done. And then I hear this cheer from the other side of the street, "Whoa, Master Chief." And I'm like, McQuist, a couple weeks, 6 months, a couple weeks. I got this.
What was the most challenging event for you in McQuist School?
I wouldn't say challenging. I would say that it was a interesting time. You do open water rescues, and so it was a little bit. It was in the spring. It was maybe March, and so the ocean's a little bit chilly. So all the McQuists have their wetsuits on for safety out there in the water, and you're doing your rescues. You're 100 meters out from the shore. And I'm sitting out there, I'm treading water, I'm waiting for my guy to come and rescue me. And he comes in, he rescues me, sticks the rescue tube around me, clicks it, and it's this big red tube that says lifeguard on it, really cool. And so he starts pulling me back into shore. And so I'm just sitting there, you can't do anything, you're not moving now. So I got my legs crossed, got my arms crossed, I'm just laying back, just floating as we're going. And I stopped shivering, which means my body temperature dropped below a certain point. And we get to the shore, and I stand up on the shore at the beach, and I'm trying to unclip the rescue tube. Now, like I said, the rescue tube is this beautiful red, right? Except my body's about the color of my blue jeans. My whole body is this light blue. And I can't get my hands to function to unclip this thing. And my brain is going, dude, that's crazy. That red tube rubbed your body blue. And I'm like, that's impossible. It can't rub me blue. But my brain isn't functioning at 100% right now. And so my buddy unclips it, and that deep part of my brain, goes, hey, dumbass, you've got hypothermia. If you don't warm up, you're going to die. So I'm like, okay, I got to warm up. All right, warm up. Instructor looks at me, goes, are you okay? I'm like, I will be when I warm up. And he goes, what are you going to do? I'm going to the head. I'm going to go get into a cool shower and warm up. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm good. And so I trudged off that beach. And as I moved, I warmed up. I got to the head, got into the showers, warmed up, got back into class. 10, 15 minutes late, instructor smiled, said, here's your test.
Wow. And so you passed that, and so when you go back to DI, then you're just a McQuist DI? They put you at the pool, or?
Not right away.
Okay.
So I finished that cycle. I did 3 complete cycles when I was in the trenches, when I was a drill instructor. And then it was my time to go do your B billet of your B billet. And since I'd been a McQuist, I went to the pool. Other people would go to the rifle range, academic instruction unit, McMap, whatever else it was that was needed to be done on the depot. Somehow I rubbed the Sergeant Major of Support Battalion the wrong way. So instead of going to the pool, I got sent to PCP first.
Pork chop platoon.
Yep. And it was the best thing for me because when you're a drill instructor, you're not in shape for yourself. You're in shape to train recruits. And so at PCP, since we have our gym there, we had everything there. I was there for 2-3 months. I was able to get back into shape for myself. So that when I went to the pool, I was able to actually survive and function. Because if I'd gone straight there, I would have drowned because I was in no shape anymore.
Yeah.
And while I was there, you get recruits that were overweight, but you also get recruits that are underweight, that physically can't do the bare minimums. And this one kid came in, and I'll never forget this kid. His name was Hammond. And I swear to God, he looked like he escaped from a concentration camp. He was underweight, he was malnourished, didn't know how to eat properly. You know, he had just eaten junk food and soda before coming in. And so being underweight, we put him on double rats. So when he went up, he'd get double the carbs, double the meat, you know, and he wanted to go to the freaking soda machine and the ice cream machine. And I was like, no, you got to eat this. And he couldn't do a pull-up, couldn't do anything. And we then put him on triple rats.
Wow.
And he wasn't improving. And when I left, he'd been transferred to the Medical Rehabilitation Platoon, MRP, where a dietitian, a doctor, got this kid to get healthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you do after your stint being a drill instructor?
So my tour as a drill instructor ended in 2001. My last overseas control date was 1988. So my monitor was pretty insistent that I go overseas. I'd just gotten married, and my wife had a great job in San Diego. We just bought a house, and so she really wasn't looking forward to going overseas for 3 years. And so she insisted I figure something else out. And in the Marine Corps, you're not given a lot of options at times. But I knew there was one place that needed Marines of my MOS, and that was our MOS school. They were always short. So I called back my monitor, and I said, hey, I know I haven't been overseas, but do you think it would be possible if I could go be an instructor at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri? And he's like, you're there. And so I went there for 3 years as an instructor for the Marine Corps, military police, worked with the Army, the Air Force is there, the Navy's there, everybody's there. And trained Marines how to be MPs in the Marine Corps.
Nice. Now, you did go to Iraq, right?
Yep. I was the Provost Marshal for 1MLG. We got assigned to the road reconnaissance between TQ and Fallujah. We had to keep it free of IEDs and attacks, and my Marines were able to do that for 6 months, the first time it had ever happened. My Marines also provided security for the base, and my Marines also provided his physical security detail. So those were the 3 missions that we got tasked. Being the Provost Marshal, we got assigned another mission of IDing third country nationals, TCNs, that were working on the base. So I had a bunch of civilians that would take pictures and fingerprints and all that stuff of the civilians, and we'd run those through some intelligence checks to make sure that these people weren't insurgents or spies or anything like that. And I sat behind the desk, and I hated life because that's not what I wanted to go to Iraq for. And so the Army got pulled out of Al Anbar, the western province, and moved into Baghdad, and the Marines took it over. And one of the missions was over there was you trained Iraqis. You had the MIT, military training teams, military transition teams, the PITs, the police transition teams, and you had the BITs, the border transition teams. And so my colonel came to me asking for a staff NCO to go be in charge of one of the PITs, the police transition teams. I looked at my staff NCOs. I had one other gunny, I had 3 staff sergeants, and they were all tasked with missions, very important. You know, one's his own physical security, one's guarding the base, one's driving the roads. And so I said, I'm the best option. And he goes, I don't want you. You're my provost marshal. And I go, well, not only am I the best option, but I'm the best trained for it, because I've been a drill instructor, I've been a military police instructor, I've been a criminal investigator, I've been an MP. I have all the experience. I have everything that this needs. And he asked me if I was sure, and I said yes. So that's how I got into the police transition team and worked out of Copperalla.
And what was that like?
To say I was trying to herd cats would be cruel to cats. Iraq has several different factions. Everything is very provincial. Everything's very family. Everything's very secular. So you have people in the town of Rawa who don't like people that are outside of Rawa. You have Sunnis that don't like Shiites. You have families that don't like other families. There was no court system. There was no law enforcement system. So they weren't as bad as they were when they were under Saddam, but they weren't up to American standards. I had a civilian team working for me to help train the police in doing police work. They were a good bunch of guys, but they were restrained on what they couldn't do because they were civilians. Half the time I lived in the police station out in the town of Rawa, and easily once a day we'd get a rocket, mortar, sniper, machine gun, suicide V-bed. You know, the mayor's office, which was right next to us, that we'd been renovating and refurbishing, was blown up and leveled by an insurgent attack. So I came back from Iraq and I retired. So in 2007, I came back in February, March, and I was out of the Marine Corps by June. Going through my second divorce. Knew California was expensive and I really didn't want to be here. I moved home to where I grew up, Albany, New York. My father at the time had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I wanted to have some time with him while he was still lucid enough to enjoy it. And so I moved home. One of the jobs I got was working as a lifeguard at the YMCA. Every veteran's going to see this happen. It's the worst thing. They respect you. They'll thank you for your service. But when you come in to go to work, they don't really appreciate your experience. So here I had been in MCIWS in the Marine Corps. I had trained 10 to 12,000 people how not to drown. At least once a week I was going into the water, saving somebody who was drowning, distressed, whatever. And, here are these civilian lifeguards who, been working 20 years as a lifeguard and never saved anybody, didn't know what it looked like in reality, telling me that, my experience was nothing. But then when they needed somebody to train lifeguards at the Y, I'm the one demonstrating everything. I'm the one doing everything. They're just standing there and I'm doing it. I'm like, yeah, really, thanks a lot. And at one point they only had one lifeguard on duty. And anybody who knows anything about lifeguarding, you don't have one person on duty. And I saw that it was unsafe and I didn't want to be put in a position where I would have to do something without the proper safety and the proper equipment and the proper personnel around me. So I had to go in for surgery on my hand, and I didn't go back.
What was it like after being 21 years in the Marines, trying to adjust to the civilian world for you?
So the hardest thing is everybody will say to the service member, to the Marine, you've changed. Okay, that's a given. Everybody changes. I went home to my family. My mother had moved. My mother was now, that my parents had been divorced. She's now with somebody else. That other person has 2 kids. My brother's moved. He's now got a different job. The mall that I went to has changed. It's doubled in size. The roads have, been changed. The freeways have been changed. To sit there and say that I've changed and they haven't is really, really ignorant because they've changed. But since they've been there and it's been gradual for all of them, they've lived through all those changes together. Because I haven't been there, it's a more drastic change to look at me. I'm still the same person I was when I left. You know, when I got out of the Marine Corps, like I said, when I joined, I had a mohawk. When I got out, I went back to a mohawk for a short time, you know, because I can. You know, I'd never dyed my hair any colors. But a friend of mine's a barber, you know, so a hairstylist, and so they're doing my mohawk, and hey, you want any colors? I'm like, yeah, sure, make it blue, make it red, let's have some fun, you know.
Yeah.
And so the hard part is getting people to understand that we as service members haven't changed. We're still the same person. We have more experiences. Life happens. I mean, the time when nothing changes is the time you're dead. You know, the worst thing though was, my mother's a doctor, and she knows better than to ask a veteran who's been to combat if they've done anything. But we're having lunch. I've been home a short time, and she asked me. Now, she's a doctor. And the number one accidental cause of death in the United States is from prescriptions. So I asked her, have you killed anyone? And she got flustered. She got offended. You can't ask me that. I'm a doctor. Yeah, but prescriptions kill people. You may have prescribed something to somebody wrong. They may have died. And I said, how's it feel? She said, that's not good. Then why'd you ask me? Because if I had, and I felt comfortable, I would have told you, because you're my mother. But to tell you, when I got to Iraq as a gunnery sergeant, yes, I had to do things. But if I had to start really taking care of everything around me, that means all my Marines aren't. And the best thing for me to do is not to be shooting at somebody, but to be on the radio, calling for artillery, air, support from whoever. That's my job as a gunnery sergeant. Not to be sitting there, you know, taking everybody out. And she listened to me, but they still don't believe you.
Yeah.
They still look at you different, you know.
Talk to me about Gunny Clause. How did you become to become known as Gunny Clause?
So, you know, I've been gone 20 odd years. Believe it or not, some people still didn't know I was alive from before I joined the Corps because they still remembered that this friend of ours, Kevin Barr, had committed suicide. So there were some people who still didn't know I was alive. So I was finding things that I could do to get reintegrated into the community. I was doing the lifeguarding. I was in the American Legion, the VFW, some other organizations, Habitat for Humanity. And I went into the reserve center that we had and started helping with Toys for Tots. And the gunny that was there, you know, gave me some boxes, drop off some businesses, pick them up, bring the toys in, sort the toys, you know, do all that stuff behind the scenes. One of the hardest things for me as a Marine is when I show up, I don't say I'm a gunny because I don't want to be put in charge of anything. I want to come in, I want to participate, I want to see how it is, and, you know, be recognized for my achievements as who I am. But as soon as somebody, you know, in the Marine Corps League or something, they find out you're a gunny, it's like, oh, hey, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. It's like, no, I'm here to help. I just want to be one of the people, one of the guys. And so I was enjoying that. And then the reserve unit, Fox 225, got moved from Albany, New York to Connecticut. And we didn't have a reserve unit. And the gunny that had been in I&I and in charge of it had retired, and he's still there. And the foundation, the Toys for Tots Foundation, asked him to run the program. And we run the program for, I think, 14 counties across New York State. And in 2018, we were recognized as the #1 program in the country.
Wow.
All because of his efforts. Gunnery Sergeant Roman, Vinny, great job, brother. And so now we needed Marines in uniform. We needed Marines to represent the program. There were some reservists in the area who were with a wing unit down in Newburgh, the C-130s and the 53s, and they lived there, and so they would be in uniform. They'd help out, but there was only 2 or 3. And so he asked me to go on an event. It was a 2-day event with Amtrak, Southern Pacific, Canadian Pacific, and we distribute toys to all these agencies across the state. And we do a publicity stunt at the stops where we'd hand out stocking stuffers to kids. We'd have Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus come off the train, Marines in dress blues. We had the Navy Reserve unit there help us, and we had an Air National Guard unit help us. And I was in civilian clothes. I wasn't Gunny Clause, didn't have the beard, wasn't all jolly. And I wasn't in uniform, but I still scared the kids. I mean, I joke you not, I had a big red bag full of toys and the kids would run away for 2 days. And I went back to Vinny and I was like, look, dude, I can't do this. I can pick up boxes, drop off boxes, work in the warehouse, but I can't scare kids. It's not Christmas. It's like, but we need you, you know? And so I was like, okay. And, Facebook was really big and I was goofing around on Facebook and I saw a Marine down in Paris Island and Camp Lejeune doing Gunny Clause. And I was like, I can do that. And I was talking to a friend of mine who had been in the Marine band. And so she got me the scarlet blouse. I contacted the company that makes the drill instructor campaign covers, and I got a campaign cover and I made it scarlet. And I made the rank of Gunny Clause. I put the Toys for Tots logo inside. Because in my opinion, when I looked at the other Gunny Clause and he had dress blue chevrons on the scarlet blouse, it disappears because it's scarlet and gold. And so the rank disappears on the sleeve. And so I had one made that was blue and gold. So it would stand out more, you'd see it. And from there, I started doing events. And it was just around Christmas at first. And then I got called up to do an event on Easter. And now I do events basically year round. Sometimes Marines will be like, hey, Gunny, you realize it's not Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you think Santa gets that list checked twice? And they're like, what? I go, you got to start checking that list right away, man. You can't let it go. You can't do it all on December 23rd. So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yep. Since I do Gunny Clause, I've changed a few things, right? You see my shirt, I'm Mary. And so I've modified a few Marine expressions. Some people get a little offended, because I'm changing things. I'm not doing the traditions the same way everybody else is. But it's for the good. It's not because me. I want to help the Toys for Tots program. I want to help Marines. I want Marines to be well. I don't want to, one of the things I do now is the silky hikes, because 22 a day is BS. There shouldn't be anybody having any problems. And like I said, I had a friend that did it, and I'll never forget him. And so one of the things I've changed is I now say Semper Festivus. Festivus for the rest of us. I stole it from Steinfeld. Jerry, if you don't like it, sue me, make me famous. The other one I do is I now say gung ho ho, right? So it's a little play on the Santa and the Marines there. And I'll do one more shout out, little history. Captain Kangaroo used to be a TV show, and he had a partner called Mr. Green Jeans. Both were Marines, all right? And Mark Wahlberg, if you know who that is,
yeah.
I had heard a rumor that he's trying to restart Captain Kangaroo.
Oh, really?
Yep. And if you look at Captain Kangaroo, he had the scarlet, and he had the beard, he had the hair. So if Mark Wahlberg wants somebody to do Captain Kangaroo, I'll be his captain.
Nice. We're going to have to tag him. Well, thanks for being here and sharing your story. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe on my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me your way cause I don't like here. Ghost of my past, they feeling the night air.